देवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुसाक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। Okay. So we'll start continuing the last week. So we are talking about this wonderful conversation that happened like centuries ago, 5,000 years ago, that Krishna and Arjun had this conversation, and we are actually talking about it now. Think about it, that we are still reading the book that was written 5,000 years ago. Isn't that amazing that it still exists and persists? How great the knowledge in that book is, that after 5,000 it's still relevant to our life. So it's the great sacred book that we are reading, and it's still making sense in our life at this time after 5,000 years. So we were on what chapter, guys? Chapter number 3, right? And we did till 9th slok. We were right closing the slok number 9, and we closed down in the middle of 9th slok, so we will start from 9th, so we can continue from there. Because 9th slok, I want to actually, it's not about 9th slok, but it's about what we were talking about last week. That was really, really important for us to understand when we are doing this Karma Yoga, right? We have to get to the foundation of Karma Yoga, understand it very well, and then move on to the next topic of this chapter, right? So we were talking about 2 things, right? We were at the topic of karma, and then we were talking about Karma Yoga, right? And then we were talking about the good karma and the bad karma, and how the things we can connect with Karma Yoga, the good and bad karma, right? So if you guys remember, there are 4 principles that we have to remember to do any action, any karma that we do in our life. There are 4 foundation or 4 principles that we have to always follow. Anybody remember any one of them out of 4? What was the first one? Any action that we take place, we should remember these 4 steps or 4 principles of any karma. What was the first one?
You don't have control over the results.
So Krish said we don't have control over the results. That's one. Okay, Sana, you want to tell the next one?
Don't do the action because of the result.
Yeah, don't do the action depending on the result, right? So the first one, no control over action, no control over results. And Sane said, don't do action depending on the results. Okay, what was the other one? Third? Yeah, Risha?
I think
do not give up actions thinking of results.
Good job. Don't give up action. Don't not do the action because of this. Not give up action because you don't think you have control. Because no control on result. Okay, what is the fourth one? Anybody on the fourth one? That was actually the first one. When we were learning about it, it was the first one that we were saying. Anybody remember the first one? That was the basic one. What about action? We all talk about the result. What about the action? Yeah, Risha.
I think it was you have a right to action.
Yes, you have right on the action. You have all the rights or all the control of doing action. So, all rights to do action. So, action is that what we can do. We have control on our actions. We don't have control on result. Because we don't have control on result, we should not stop doing action. And because we don't have control on result, thinking about that, don't do any actions, right? So that was the 4 fundamental principle. Whenever you pick up any action, it's not just spiritual action, right? Any action, these 4 fundamental stuff we have to remember when we are doing action. So that's karma, all actions. Any actions, right? So you have to remember that we are talking about all the action. Now, what is the connection between these and karma yoga, right? So now I want to, yes, Risha, you want to talk?
Karma yoga is the yoga of action.
Yes, yoga of action, right? So now we are talking about action. So we need to understand what's the right action. So we already told about the fundamental fact of all these actions, right? Now we're going to talk about what is karma yoga, right? So now let's go to karma yoga. But before I get to karma yoga, I want to talk to you about 2 things: good action and bad action, right? So there are 2 things that we need to talk about: good action and bad action, right? So let's talk about bad action or bad karma. So anything that is not moral, right? That is not ethical. That's not on depending on the laws, right? All these things, like people want to get possession of everything, collection of wealth, taking wealth over, and all these things are bad actions, right? That we don't follow the ethics, we don't follow the law, we don't follow, we think about bad about other people, we keep thinking about accumulation of wealth and everything. Oh, this whole wealth, I need it for myself, I will not share with anybody. All these toys, I will keep it to myself, I'm not going to share with anybody. All these, I have so much knowledge or so much resources to give other people, I'm not going to give it to anybody else because they will steal my knowledge or they will take away my stuff, so I'm going to keep it to myself, right? All these actions are bad actions, right? Now these bad action causes twofold hurt to us. The first one is that it does damage the society, right? The people who can learn out of our resources will not learn out of our resources. People who can, we can distribute wealth. If we have a lot of wealth, people will not get, good resources of the wealth. So then the bad karma, first thing, it damages the society, right? Because one thing, even if we do unlawful action, it hurts the society. If we do unethical things, it hurts the society, right? That's the one thing. The second thing, it also hurt us, ourselves. What? Because you remember, bad karma, bad consequences, right? So we will eventually get to the point where we will get bad results of it, bad consequences, and we are going to fall into sorrow and unhappiness and all those things will come to us, right? So eventually it's going to hurt us too. Now let's talk about good action. Now these are the actions or good karmas. Now these are the actions that we do ethically, lawfully. Though we accumulate the wealth, but we accumulate it lawfully. We did not hurt anybody. We did not steal anybody's wealth. We did not do anything. We studied well. We become, professions that we captured. We got the money and salary, and we accumulated that. So we are doing these actions are actions, good actions with the desires. So desires are always there in these actions too, right? There is always desire. But this desire doesn't let us cross. We are no obsessed with it, so it doesn't let us cross the ethical, the moral ground of us, right? So we stay moral, we do things, but we do it ethically way, we do it right way, we do it lawful way, right? So this is the one that is good karma, right? Now good karma will result in good future happiness and stuff like that. But again, we talk about it that worldly happiness is not always happiness forever, right? You remember, it doesn't give you entire happiness. So you can have good actions. You can, most of the people just stop here. So this good action can be done by these 4 formulas, 4 fundamental that we are given. We have to leave the bad action for sure, right? We cannot move forward with doing any bad action, not hurting anybody, not doing unethical things, right? Even if we are in this class, we should follow these. That's the only way you can reach to the next level of spirituality or good person, is we have to cut down all these. We cannot do this. No matter which stage are we in, there is no room of doing this, right? So now we are talking about this and coming to this, right? So we got to the good action, good desire, karma with desires. So now there are desires and we are doing good karma. Yeah, see a...
So under the good action, what does it say?
Under the good action, it says karma. I just put action and karma so you know they are same words.
Okay.
Okay? And then I said it's with desire, right? So Vivekananda Swami, as I said last time, also said that chain means, chain of which we sometimes tie people around. So chain made up of gold, good action. So chain made up of gold is not less strong to bind somebody. So even if it is made up of gold, the chain is made up of gold, it still binds the people, right? So good karma with desire also binds people, right? Bind people to what? To this worldly things, materials and all these things. So they still bind you with this worldly thing. So now we know we need to do good karma with these fundamental, right? Thinking about that we only have right of action, we don't have right on the results. So we need to do this with these fundamental. But now, how can we break this gold chain? How can we do that? So then in the Gita it has been introduced Karma Yoga. What is Karma Yoga now? Karma Yoga is devoting all your actions, which we are doing all the good action, right? So make sure we don't understand that we are talking about bad action also devoted to God. We are only talking about good actions that have good actions with desire, right? So all these actions, when we devote it to God, when we surrender it to God, or we surrender it to the higher goal, always whenever I mention higher goal, means we are going beyond our usual goal. We are going beyond higher goal, means we are helping the community or helping other people or helping animal or helping this whole nature. That's beyond our selfish goals, right? I want to be a doctor, I want to be an astronaut for myself. That's lower goal. That's very low value of goal, right? That goes in the good actions. But when you say, I want to be a doctor to help the community and I'm going to help people, then it becomes higher goal, right? So remember the difference between that. So your goal should be, whatever I become, I want to get to a point where I can help people, other people in this world. That becomes higher goal. So when all our actions, when we devote it to God, either you believe in God and we put the God on the top, on the highest level, or we believe that our goal of helping others is on the highest level. So when we devote that to unselfish actions, right? Unselfish actions means then these desires are washed out. The good karma with desire, they washed out. Because now what? The desires is not ours, that we want this, I want to do this, I want to do this. Then desire becomes for other people, right? We want to help others, right? So then when we surrender all these actions to God or higher level, that becomes karma yoga, right? So now you need to understand what are we doing? All these things, we are taking all these fundamental rule of actions, the karmas, and then we are only addressing good actions, and then all these actions, when we devote to God or higher goal, it becomes karma yoga. So devotion of all our actions to God becomes karma yoga, right? Now you guys understand what is the relationship between this, right? So it comes down to, you have to do all these fundamental things. You cannot just say, oh, I'm devoting all my action to God and I'm doing karma yoga. Are you doing all these steps? Are you following these steps when you are doing action? When you follow these steps and you are doing only these actions, then it becomes devotion to the God, right? So you have to understand that big part, that when we talk about karma yoga, what are we already taking the fundamental in place, and then we are talking about karma yoga, right? You guys got it? Right? So now we talked a little bit in a couple classes ago. I know that there was a big gap in the classes, so I don't know if you remember, but we're going to talk about karma yoga. Let me keep this in so you guys can keep seeing it and understanding what we are talking about here. So now when we talk about devotion of all our action to God, what is the easiest way, right? So we discussed about what happened, that there are two things when we take an action. One is the person who is doing the action, karta. So karta means the person who is doing the action. So I'm the one who is doing the actions, right? So I do the action, I respond to somebody, I do all my actions myself, right? So it's me who is doing the action. Then there is always one more aspect to the action. There will be always a result to the action, right? So there are always two things we have to keep in mind whenever we do action. One is who is doing the action, so it's going to be me who does the action, and the second, that every action will have the results, right? So now think about it, that how can we devote all our action to God? How can it be the easiest way to devote all our actions to God? So anybody remember what example did we take last time? How can we devote all our actions to God?
Thank God. Think about how this could help you go to God while doing the action, or thank God while doing the action.
Well, there was a very easy example that we can follow, if anybody remembers. Yeah, Risha. Oh, let's Saisha talk now. Okay.
We use the example showering. Like you can devote God to showering. And you can thank God for letting you have the supplies and water to keep you clean. everything.
True, true. What else? Thank you, Sasha. That was good. Risha, you want to add something?
You can also, whenever you eat food, you can pray to God
Yeah.
and like say thank you.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Karna, you want to say something?
You can pray to God and thank God for a shelter and house and a nice family.
Yes, right. Okay, Veera, what do you want to say?
You can thank God by giving you
Giving you, brother?
food
Food, yeah, true. Food.
and water.
And father, yeah, right. So very good. So that those were the things. But is it easy for you guys? You guys all came up with the examples, right? We had the whole class where you presented your way of devoting it to God. Tell me how many of you guys were able to do it every day? Were you able to do only that one action that you discussed in the example? Were you able to do that every day? It's hard, right? Isn't it hard? It's very hard. It's very simple to say it, right? Devote all your action to God, but it's very, very hard, right? It's not easy to do that every day. It needs a lot of practice. But here is one fundamental thing that I want all of you guys to remember this forever, right? That you know what happens is we do puja, right? We do worship. There will be a lot of shlokas that's going to come next, which will talk about our worshipping to God. So we do puja every day, like you don't do it, your parents do it, but or you go to temple and you see the priest doing puja, right? The temple and everywhere. So we do puja, and then what happens after the puja, after we do aarti, there is always prasad that we eat, right? That we give it to God, we give the prasad to God, and then we get the prasad, right? Divine leftover, we can say leftover from Bhagwanji. Bhagwanji don't eat much, right? He's always dieting, so he just doesn't eat. We give it to him and we eat it, right? So we get prasad. How many of you guys eat prasad and if your parents says you have to eat it, and if you don't like that prasad, you still take it because it's God's prasad? How many of you have came across that you don't like that thing and still you had to eat it because it was prasad, right? We all ate it once, right? So we all eat because why? Why do we eat that prasad that we didn't even like it? Sean, go.
Because it's prasad and like no.
Because it's prasad, what?
And like he can go. He knows what I'm saying.
No, you can
I know what
explain.
he's trying to say. Yeah, he knows what I'm saying.
No, I
I
want to
do
hear
know,
from
I
you.
know.
Okay. Nishi, you want to say?
Oh my god.
Because if you don't eat it, you'd be like disrespecting God.
Yeah. So there is a respect relationship between you and God. So you don't want to disrespect Him, right? Good answer. What else? Yes, Annie.
Like God is like divine, and if He like touches your food, then it's like
The food is divine?
more, yeah, like it's, you have to eat it.
Yeah, because
I know
it's
how to,
touched by
like-
God, right? That's what you are
Yeah.
thinking? God is divine and you want to do that way. Yeah, Krish.
It's a gift from God,
Mm-hmm.
so you should eat it because God is personally gifting you His food.
Okay, that's a good way to think, right? So we all do eat prasad without any complaining, right? If the same food is made by your mom and you don't like it, do you eat it or you complain about it?
Eat it. No.
Liar. So, tell me how many of you guys eat the same food that you don't like if your mom gives you? You do complain, right? Little bit, Mama, I don't like this, right?
You end up eating
But
it.
if it given by God, do you complain? You never complain? Okay. Sunny, you are a really nice son. And Nishi and Risha, you
No,
too.
no. It was just Saisha was raising her hand, and she's lying.
Oh, yeah.
You complain, but you end up eating it because
Yeah,
I
but
don't
you
have
complain,
about
right?
everything,
So,
I can't say.
what is it?
Sunny complains about everything, so
Okay.
everything that my mom makes. So.
Yeah, so see that, it's hard, right? Now I'm going to tell you this thing, right? Because it's prasad, everything is okay. Why? Because it's touched by God, or it's gifted by God, it's gifted by God, right? Everything looks good to us, right? So whatever we give it to God, then we eat it. The same way, just not food, right? Just not food. Everything, all the situation that's created by around us. Like parents, our parents are given by who? God, right? God gives us parents. We did not pick them, or nobody else picked them. God picked for us, right? Then God gives us friends, the places that we do, the things we do, everything is, given by God. Then why would you complain? There is no complaint then, right? It's all good then. It's like God's prasad. So if in every situation, if we take that part and say everything that surrounded us given by God, then why complaining? The situations are given to us by God, then why complaining? No complaint, right? The same way, but what happens is, when we make prasad, when we give anything to God, what happens? We do it really extraordinary. We don't do just normal things, right? If I am making prasad for God, I will make sure that I'm using clean vessel to make it. I'm putting pure, everything is pure, everything is nicely done, right? I'm not, if somebody eats juta out of this, I will say, no, we cannot give this to Bhagwanji because you already ate out of it. We don't eat before giving it to God. So we do follow all these things to give him the best, right? And then we take it from him as his gift. So when it comes to karma, so when we are giving anything to God, we are making it the best, right? So any action that we do, we have to do it best. Do you understand that part also? It's not that God gives us whatever we have to take and we just want to relax, because God is giving everything to us. So why would I do anything? Or I don't study well in the test, but God should give me good marks because I prayed to God. Would that happen? No, because what you have to do, you have to give your action 100% also, then the result that will come will be good, right? We don't have to think about results, but when we expect good results and not put our action into it, then what happens? Then God doesn't help. Like someone has to help himself, God help that person who helps himself, right? So make sure that when we talk about karma, we have to bring this prasad buddhi. Buddhi means intellect. Prasad means divine food, right? So we need to, how we think about prasad, the same way we have to think about all the situation. If it is good or bad, we need to accept it. But then we have to do the karma the best, because that's the only thing is in our control, right? So our karma should be best. So then we get prasad buddhi, so that whatever result come, it doesn't matter to us. Then we can follow these rules, right? And then we can devote all our action to God. Then the karma becomes good, and then the karma becomes karma yoga. So we are processing karma yoga every time, right? So do you guys understand the difference between karma and karma yoga? And do you guys understand the fundamental of karma and how you can bring karma yoga in all your actions? Got it?
Got it.
Awesome. So you know what? There was a Swami Sarva Priyanand. He was going in the airport, right? In the airport, what happens? When we go in that, when we go to through security in India, they check with that thing, your body, if you don't have any metal on your body when you do security check, right? So he was going through that security check. The guy said that, oh, you know, Swami and all these guru, they wear orange clothes and stuff like that. So he was wearing these orange clothes, so everybody can understand that he is some kind of a spiritual guru, right? So the guy said, you know, you are a spiritual guru. Tell us something about spirituality, right? The flight is about to come, but we are, you know, there is not too many passengers. So tell us about spirituality. So he, you know, in the middle of all these guys who were, you know, security people, you know, those are they are, you know, they are police guys, right? So they were there. So he said, what should I tell them? So he said, you know, I talk about karma yoga. So how can you have karma yoga while you are doing your job here? So he asked, who are you? Do you go to temple? And the guy said, yes, I do go to temple. Then he said, okay, whom do you believe? Like, there are so many gods in our Hindu mythology. So there is, he said, Hanuman. I go to Hanuman Mandir before coming to work, and every day I go to and worship Hanuman. So then Swamiji said that, you know what? Every person that come to you and you check them, right? You go from top to bottom. They check from top to bottom, right? And then they turn you around and they check top to bottom. So every person, when you check them, you know, think about in your mind that you are actually, when you go to the bottom, you are putting a flower in Hanumanji's feet. Every person. So then what he said, oh wow, so morning till evening I'm praying for Hanumanji. And that's what Swamiji said, yes, every morning to evening, whenever you do this, you're going to think about that you are praying to Bhagwanji, right? So what happened is, what he was trying to teach, that how you can change your work, regular work, right? He was just checking everybody if they are, you know, there is nothing unlawful that people are taking in the plane or something that he has to change it. So his work, he changed it to Karma Yoga. How did he change it to Karma Yoga? Just changing, oh, it got turned off. सबको एंटर कर देना. Okay. So he said, in Hindi, I will say that he said, "Waha wah, subah se sham tak Hanuman ji ki bhakti," right? So what happens is, he actually devoted his work, right? He was going to work and he was getting the salary, but he devoted that work to his God, his higher self, right? So that's how you can change your work, your regular karma, to karma yoga. Right? How easy that example was. Like, how can you think about doing your homework, doing anything that you do, play, your everyday work, to the Karma Yoga, right? So now if mama makes any food, you don't complain, because what you are doing? Karma Yoga, right? So you are having the Prasada Buddhi, so anything that you get, you're gonna keep that, right? So that's how it is. Another story that recently I got to read, there was a 13-year-old girl in India, in Tamil Nadu. She was, her dad is a barber, right? So they don't earn too much. So he was working very hard to make her study well, and all the for the college tuition and everything. Her dad was saving money, so he saved 5 lakhs rupees for her tuition for college. He was saving so that she can go to college. She's in 9th grade, and so what happened when COVID hit? A lot of businesses got closed, right? So all these businesses got closed, and there were too many people, workers who used to work in these big factories that got closed because of COVID. So they were going home. They used to live in small villages, right? And they come to city to work, and they were, because now the work was closed, they couldn't stay in the city and pay everyday rent and get food because they were not getting money as their jobs were turned off, right? So then when they were going home, she saw those people who were going without food, and kids were crying, and there were no food, no milk for people. So what she came back home and she said, Dad, you have saved some money for my studies, and why don't you give that money to these poor guys and help them? And Dad said, oh no, I worked so hard for you, then we will have no more money saved for your college. Then what are you going to do for your college tuition? And she said, no, right now these guys need it, so let's give it to them and help them. So Dad and the daughter, who is in 9th grade, they went and they took out all the money, whatever was saved, and gave it to these poor people, and give them food and everything. This thing came across, so they did really hard work too, with food, their transportation, that they were walking to their villages. They tried to help them to transport themselves to villages to where they can be safe and they can live there. So they did a lot of work with those 5 lakh rupees that they saved. So this story was actually came across with some people in USA, and they read that story, and they actually did a lot of funding for that girl, and right now she is being ambassador for goodwill for UN. Can you believe how big position she got, that she has to, for goodwill of UN, that she's going to be traveling and talking about goodwill, that people can get, if you have a good thoughts and you have good ideas about how, she and her father donated all their money that was saved to people to help them, right? And now she is she's coming to Washington, New York to give a speech.
What is
goodwill? Means to do good things to the society.
Oh.
Right, so she is the ambassador for that. So she's going to go in all the countries and talk about it and give speech about it. So think about it, she gave everything of herself, thinking about with an unselfish thought. She was not thinking that she will get such a good results, that people will pay her tuition, people will be ready to pay for her, and she will be nominated to become an ambassador in UN, and she's just 13-year-old. Think about it. She's not a grown-up person who can think, oh, okay, let me do this and I will give my all savings, and I'm getting old, that's going to be okay. She did while she's 13-year-old. So think about it. That is the example, real example right now. While we are here, that's a real example for Karma Yoga. Right? Example of Karma Yoga. They didn't think about anything, right? They could, nothing could have happened, and they could have, she would not have money to go to college. That was the situation when she took that unselfish decision to give all the money to people who needed it. So how such a grand, Karma Yogi she is. Think about it that way, right? So those are the examples that are still in this age, not just 5,000 years ago. People still do those things that we, when we have to do it, oh no, we cannot even give our our things to anybody. Here she gave all her future to somebody people who were in need, right? So we have lots and lots of examples of these kind of Karma Yogi, and that's what we need to do it, right? Okay. So that's what I wanted to give you an example for. So let's move on to our next slok. So we finished it till 9th. And we will move on to the 10th. Okay. Ready, Sean? Sunday will be from 11th to 20th. We are on 10th. Okay, we're gonna go to chapter 3 and shlok number 10.
What page is that?
Okay, anybody can give you a page number, guys?
138.
138. Everybody ready? Okay, awesome.
Sahayagna prajashashtra
Sahayagna prajashushva
Purovacha prajapate
Purovacha prajapati
Anena prasavishyadvam
Anena prasavishwadvam
Esha vostista kamata
Esha vosrista kamada. Together. Sahayagna prajashushva Purovacha prajapati Anena prasavishyadvam Esha yostvista kamada. Okay. Now God is explaining a different kind of thing, and I want you guys to understand that this was done like 5,000 years ago, where there was a kind of ritual that we used to do it, which, you know, sacrifice in the fire, right? There was a yagna. We talk about yagna on those days where, you know, there was a kind of square kind of one thing was made, and then in that square we fire, the fire is born, like we ignite the fire there, and then we sacrifice some kind of, you know, things, the earthly thing, all these ghee, like, you know, the butter and all those things we used to sacrifice in there and do some ritual things, right? When we did the initial talk about Upanishad, there are a lot of Upanishad, some part of Upanishad is about the rituals that we used to do. So there's a lot of detail is given in our Upanishads, our Ved, all these rituals, the fire rituals and all the sacrifices that used to be done. So a little bit God is going to talk about these rituals. Now, probably you would say that I never saw those rituals being done, right? Even in weddings, if you would have seen, like, you know, in weddings there is a fire in the middle and the bride and groom is taking circle around the fire. Have you seen that? At least in the movie you would have seen that, right? That is also a kind of ritual, right? That they sacrifice in the fire, and then they take the vows and they take the promises against the fire, right? So those days there was a lot of these things were done. Either people used to do it or people used to hire priests doing it, right? Nowadays we don't see that much, right? Nowadays we see some like kind of puja, right? In the morning you put the you light the diya, or you know, make God eat food, or prepare God, give bath to God, or something like that. That's still there, but these big rituals are gone. It's only sometimes then we see the fire rituals. But what in this, God, remember all the time in these next 5-6 slokas, God is talking to Arjun in 5,000 years ago when those rituals were there. So we're going to talk about what he's talking, but we will take the meaning out of it, but we will connect to the things that we do nowadays, right? We don't do those rituals, but God is talking about those rituals. But then we will take out the abstract of it and see how it connects to our daily life here, right? So in this shlok, God says the Creator, when it created the mankind, he created these yagnas. Yagnas means these rituals, the fire yagnas, together. So he created the mankind, and then he created the yagnas with it. Now what did he, you know, we said yagnas means was sacrificial actions that were dedicated to higher goals, higher ideals, right? So mankind was created plus yagnas were created together, right? Now in this chapter, yagnas, Krishna Bhagavan is talking about those fire rituals and everything. But basically yagna is anything that is sacrificial action dedicated to higher goals or ideals. Now remember this thing, whenever I say higher goals, so what does that mean?
Achieving
Achieving
God.
God.
Achieving God or
Moksha.
Helping people.
helping people, right? Achieving God or helping people, whichever one you want to flow with it, right? So yagna was that the God created both, right? So now what happens is when you propagate your life. God is saying when you propagate your life, the mankind with yagna, all your desires are fulfilled like Kamdhenu. Kamdhenu is the cow. Vasishtha had a cow, right? And does anybody remember what was Kamdhenu cow? Does anybody know about Kamdhenu cow? So Vasishtha Rishi had the cow. I told you guys.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
She had
yeah.
like a cow and then
It would make anything.
Yeah,
it
it will
make,
give-
and then someone took it away or something. I
No,
forgot.
Yeah.
and then the king was trying to take it away, but Vashista said he wouldn't sell it for anything in the entire world.
Yeah. So Vasishtha Rishi had a cow who could do anything. Whatever you in front of the cow, you go and desire, the cow will give anything and everything. So he used to, when a king's army used to come, he used to say, "Oh, I will cook meal for everybody." And then there were thousands of soldiers used to come, and the king used to think, this poor sage, how will he make food for such a big army? And then he get to know that he had this cow whose name was Kamdhenu, who used to give anything that you desire. So Vasishtha used to go and say, "Kamdhenu cow, I have so many guests over, make food for 10,000 people, provide food for 10,000 people." And she used to provide food for 10,000 people. So it's a story that is in our culture where we talk about it. So what God is saying, that when mankind do these yagnas, they get whatever they desires, like getting from Kamdhenu, right? So he talks about the Kamdhenu cow at the end, right? Kamdhenu. So that's what he's saying about it. Now what happens is, here one thing you have to remember, that only human being has this capability of sacrificing anything, right? Or sacrificing or making goals, right? None other creature in this world can do this, right? Animal cannot sacrifice anything. Animal cannot have a higher goal. Animal cannot say that, "Oh, my goal is to go to that forest and eat that apple." They don't make that goals, right? They just eat whatever comes in front of them. They will keep walking if they don't get the food in one direction and get the food, right? So only human is the one that is full of, they can do sacrifice, they can do desire, they are full of desires, and then they can do everything that, then they can do everything. So what yagnas before was mentioned, that this bring prosperity and peace of mind. So those were the two things that in our Vedas it's written, if people do these rituals, they get prosperity, like all their desires are fulfilled, and they get mental peace, right? So then you do all these the Agni, the fire rituals, and you get all these things, right? Now desires, always remember that desires are like bacteria, right? Desires are like bacteria, they grow very fast. Like when we think about, "Oh, I need this," then as soon as we get this, we go to the next thing. As soon as we get the next thing, we go to the next thing. I wish I can have this. I wish I can have it. So desires are like bacteria that goes very, very fast. And where does the disease occur by this bacteria? Desire kind of bacteria. What is the disease? From what organ it starts?
The mind.
The mind. It starts from the mind. So it is a disease of mind, right? Desire is a bacterial disease of mind, right? It starts from the mind. And what happens? What are the consequences? What happens with it? You get mental agitation with this disease, and you get sorrow, because when you don't get it, you are in sorrow. Even when you get it, you are in sorrow because you ask for something else. So it is a disease, it is a mind disease, and it is a bacterial mind disease which causes what? Mental agitation and sorrow, right? What are the impacts of it? It ruins the concentration and productivity of our work, right? We don't get our work is not that good, and it loses, our concentration goes away because we start thinking about these desires, right? So that's one thing. But God here is talking about that you can get all your desire fulfilled, right? There was a book written by, I forgot the writer name. He talks about all the religions, right? The first religion he discusses the Hinduism. And in Hinduism, the first sentence he writes in that book that this religion gives you anything that you desire. So this book, this religion gives you, and God is saying the same thing. If you follow these steps, you will get anything that you desire, right? So if I say, I don't want God, I don't want anything, I don't want to help anybody, but what I want is, I want a lot of money. Let me pray God to have a lot of money, right? If you go and pray God, God will give you a lot of money, right? Whatever you pray, God gives you, right? That's what God here is saying. If you follow these yagnas, you will get what you desire, right? Now what's going to happen is you might get all the money, but you will still not be happy, right? You will never get happiness until you keep on dwelling on these worldly things, money, wealth, fame, right? All these worldly things, if you keep going on that, the happiness will not be there, because you're going to keep asking for something else, right? So what happened is, we have to understand that if we fix now higher goal, when he says sacrifice here, if we fix our mind, right, to an unselfish goal of helping other people, right, then it becomes more that we can reach to these goals, and we can get happiness, right? But all these desires, if they are selfish desire, then you will get a temporary happiness, not forever. So use your intellect, not your desires, to guide your actions. So remember that. What do you have to use? Use your intellect, not the desire. Use your intellect, not your desire, to get to do your actions. Whatever actions you take, use your intellect, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what he is saying. He just explaining a little in this shlok, but he's going to continue doing in the next couple shloks. What is he talking about yagna in here? Here he just informed that mankind and yagna were built together by the Creator, and then if you follow these two together, if you propagate your mankind with the yagnas, these sacrifice, you will get all what you desire, right? So that's what God says in verse 10. And now we go to 11. Sanay, you ready to read Shlok 11? We'll do this Shlok real quick and then we will end that. Okay. You ready?
Devan bhava yatanena
Devan bhavayatanena.
Te deva bhavayantuva.
Te deva bhavayantuva.
Parasparam bhavayanta.
Parasparam bhavayantah.
Shreya paramavapsyata.
Shreya paramavapsyata.
Together.
Devan bhavayatanena. Te deva bhavayantuva. Parasparam bhavayantah. Shreya paramavapsyata.
Okay. In this, it simply says one thing. It's very quick, that you nourish the God and God nourishes you. So it's always, so now probably, think about it, what he is talking about. He is talking about the nature, the surrounding around you. So you nourish the nature nourishes you. When we come across these fire rituals, right? They say that there are 5 things that everybody is made of. This whole universe is made up of 5 things. What are those 5 things? Air, water, fire, earth,
Lightning.
space.
Oh, my bad.
Those 5 things. Okay, I will repeat one more time so you guys can, if you want to write it. So there are 5 things that we are made of: air, water, fire, earth, and space, right? So God is gonna, whenever we talk about these fire ritual and everything, they take all these 5 elements and then they talk about these 5 elements and then sacrifice these 5 elements, right? Because that's what we are made of, right? So here he's talking about that when you nourish the God, God will nourish you back, and it is, nourishing one another, right? So if we nourish these 5 elements, like, so if we nourish this Prakriti, like we give water to the tree, tree gives you fruit back, right? So we nourishes each other. We eat food from the crops, right? The fruits that we get, the plants gives us fruit, but we have to give them water, right? So it's 2 and 4 that it keeps going. God, nourish the God with this, with the yagna that he is talking about. God will nourish you. So nourish each other. Now what happened in long time, early on, when the sage were there, the people who wrote all these rituals, all these yagnas, what they were thinking, like they divinized everything in the world, because they figured it out that human is always attracted to the world, right? Anybody, like animals or human, everybody is attracted to the world. So what they did is, to make the work divinize, they divinize everything. So let me give you an example. Let's talk about worldly thing like money, right? So money, a human is attracted to the money, right? How did the sage divinized it? They divinized by making a god of money. Which one is god of money? Lakshmi. Like Lakshmi Mata is god of money. So divinize the money by putting a god of money, so that when we want to earn money or we want to talk about the money, the worldly things, what do people do? They worship
Lakshmi.
They worship Lakshmi.
Lakshmi Puja.
Right? Lakshmi Puja. So they worship Lakshmi. So then earning the money become divinized, the work become divinized. You got my point? So now if somebody wants to get the knowledge, whom do they worship?
Saraswati.
Saraswati. Why? Because then
she's
the
the
god
god
of
Goddess.
knowledge is who?
Goddess.
Saraswati. Goddess of knowledge is Saraswati.
Puja.
Right? So what happened is, in those days, we got created so many gods just to make our worldly thing, because we are so attracted to the world thing. So we want to make our world divine, our work divine. What happened then? Every work was assigned by a god. And then the work become divinized. right? Then any work we do, we worship somebody, some kind of God, so then the work becomes karma yoga, right? All the karma becomes karma yoga because we are devoting our work to that God. So like earning money was devoted to Lakshmi Mata, studying knowledge, getting knowledge was devoted to Saraswati Mata. So then all the work were divinized to the God. When he talk about this it says Deva. Deva means all the Devtas. Devtas means all these divine, gods, right? All these gods, Ganesh, Lakshmi. So he's not talking about one God. When we talk about it like as one God, right? There is only one, Brahman. There is nothing else. But then in here he talks about Devas, means lot of Devas. So he's introducing these all earthly gods that were made just because we wanted to make, as human was attracted to worldly thing, all these sages made these gods to make sure that we are attracted to worldly thing, but the worldly thing also have worshipping these world by worshipping these gods, right? So that's what he says here, that if you worship, doing this yagnas, if you worship them and you nourish them, they will nourish you back. So if we do worship of Lakshmi, then Lakshmi will nourish you with money. If you worship for Saraswati, then Saraswati will worship you with knowledge. Like this, there were so many gods were made just to make sure that we can do things and keep the higher idol in our mind, right? You got that? So we're gonna start from verse 12 next week. Okay guys, any questions? Okay, let's close it. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsacharunamardhanam Devaki Paramanandam
Krishna Vande Jagadgurum.
Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.